I'm going to try to say this carefully. And by carefully, I mean in the particular way one speaks when one knows what follows will irritate almost everyone in the room, including oneself, which is usually a good sign that the thing might be worth saying. There's this thing I keep seeing. I've seen it often enough in enough different cities, social scenes, restaurants, bars, and softly lit spaces where people pretend not to watch one another while watching one another intensely. And it's begun to feel less like an anecdote, more like a pattern. The pattern looks roughly like this. A woman in her 30s or 40s or 50s dating a man in his early 20s. Not a scandalous gap, not illegal, not even especially shocking anymore. And everyone involved is consenting, functional, tax-paying, therapy literate. No one is being coerced. That's not the issue. The issue is the dynamic. The dynamic is strange in a way that is difficult to describe without sounding unkind, which is unfortunate because the unkindness is not the point. The man is usually lost. I mean, he's in his 20s. Not in a dramatic, tragic sense, more like a soft, chronic disorientation. He asks her what they should do tonight. He asks her what they should eat. He asks her what he should wear. He tells her all his business ideas and dreams and then wakes up the next morning telling her different ones. He asks her what she thinks about the thing he's upset about and then becomes upset that her answer is not what he wanted and then becomes more upset that he cannot articulate why he feels upset to begin with. Meanwhile, she explains him to friends, to bartenders, to male friends, older male friends in particular, the way that one explains a child who's bright but a little behind emotionally. There's affection, yes. There's probably chemistry, but there's also management. It begins to feel less like romance and more like a relationship between a junior employee and a benevolent but increasingly exhausted supervisor. Now, there's an obvious objection here, that I'm generalizing, that I'm selecting only the cases that fit the theory, and that love takes many forms, that age gaps can work, that I'm not inside these persons' homes or prayers or private moments of grace. All true. But patterns don't require universality to be real. They only require repetition. And repetition is what I'm talking about. What's unsettling is not that these relationships exist, it's what they seem to substitute for. There is, in many of these cases, a faint but persistent sense that both parties are getting something they want, but not something that can actually satisfy the wanting. He gets a mother without diapers, care, structure, emotional reassurance, guidance, without the humiliation of literal dependency. And she gets a son without pregnancy, nurturing, purpose, intimacy, a sense of being needed, without the irreversible commitment of actual motherhood. Everyone wins in theory, but everyone loses in practice, because this is not how desire is supposed to be organized. One of the strangest modern ideas, so strange that it's said casually, as if it were self-evident, is the claim that having children ruins a woman's body. Ruins, as though the body were a decorative object, or a leasehold investment, or a high-end application whose resale value must be protected. As though the very function that the body is ordered toward were some kind of regrettable defect. And this idea is so normalized now that it barely registers as an idea at all. It registers as common sense. And common sense historically is where some of the worst lies hide. What is almost never said out loud is that postponing marriage and children doesn't eliminate sacrifice. It merely relocates it. You still give up your body, just more slowly and with less meaning attached to the loss. You still give up freedom, only now it's traded for anxiety, dating apps, and the strange exhaustion of having infinite options that somehow feel like none. You still nurture, only now you nurture lovers, pets, careers, men who cannot quite grow up, projects that cannot quite love you back. From a Christian perspective, which is to say from a perspective that assumes reality has an order that precedes our preferences, this all looks like misalignment rather than rebellion. People aren't refusing marriage and children because they hate them. They're refusing them because they've been taught subtly and relentlessly that meaning is something you opt into later, once you've optimized yourself enough to deserve it. Once you're thinner, once you're richer, calmer, more healed, less needy, less human. The tragedy, though, is that this is precisely backward. Meaning doesn't arrive once life is under control. Meaning is what controls life, or at least gives it a direction sturdy enough to bear suffering. Marriage and children are not rewards for finishing yourself. They are the context in which you are finished, or at least properly undone. So when we see these relationships, the managed young man, the maternal girlfriend, the postponed family, it isn't primarily a moral failure, it's a category error. Things are being asked to do jobs they cannot do. Lovers are being asked to substitute for spouses. Romantic relationships are being asked to absorb the weight of generations. Biology is being asked to wait politely while ideology catches up. Christianity, if it is going to speak at all, should probably speak here, not with scolding, not with culture war hysteria, but with clarity. We are meant to marry. We are meant to have children. We are meant to do this young enough that our energy, our foolishness, our bodies, and our patience still overlap. This is not nostalgia. It's anthropology. And the uncomfortable question lurking beneath all of this, the one we keep avoiding by reframing everything as lifestyle choice, is not why are some people choosing differently. It's why so many of us are pretending that postponement is neutral. Because the body keeps time whether we acknowledge it or not. And desire, when denied its proper object, will always find a replacement. The only question is whether that replacement can actually hold the weight we put on it. And most of the time it can't.